Boo! Wanna hear a ghost story? Of course you do, it's in season. But this is no regular ghost story. It is a surprisingly intricate and engrossing narrative with plot twists and foreshadowing for a small hidden object game released in 2011 where the player character gets stuck in a haunted house. So, join me as I explain the lore of Mystery of Mortlake Mansion. The protagonist receives a letter sent all the way back in April of 1963 from an unknown correspondent who simply signs himself as R, letting them know that they are in mortal danger, and their only chance is to come to Mortlake Mansion. The letter also arrives with a map of the place and a medallion. So, a little bit about our protagonist here. They are in a rough financial situation, but decide the intrigue is worth it to use their last savings to travel to Mortlake Estate. Seeking answers about the letter, what they find instead is a derelict, abandoned mansion that seems to barely be keeping itself together. The front door is locked, but fortunately the pieces to the lock are right there. Upon going in, the front door immediately slams shut, and our hero is left stuck inside. Immediately they find another note from R that tells them they should look for crystals next. It may appear that R has started some sort of ARG and the main character is having absolutely none of it. The note also contains the key that is used to unlock the library. The library itself contains another note. Essentially, R was documenting his experience after moving into the mansion through a diary. The first entry conveys his excitement at the prospect of finding interesting things, such as the Book of Shadows, an ancient manuscript written by occultist Cagliostro. Unfortunately, this does put his mental state under question by the protagonist. The green crystal is revealed in the bookcase and it is used on the compartment the diary scrap was initially found on. Upon activation, the portal takes the protagonist to the shadowy library. Located in an alternate version of the mansion, the game calls the seamy side. But I'm going to call it the shadowy dimension because I want to and you can't stop me. But I digress. This version of the manor defies all knowledge. Magic and the supernatural are common occurrences, such as this raven is one of the mansion's entities, and it seems to want to communicate something with the protagonist. So they brew a speech potion with the help of a book that allows the raven to master the English language. The crow tells the protagonist to look for the fabled Book of Shadows and leaves them a piece of the lock that leads to the room ahead. This is sure to be an arduous journey. Blood, sweat and tears shall go into finding this book, and oh, it was right here. Turns out the book is in the shadowy observatory, where it is guarded by a really easy planet puzzle. However, when trying to pick up the book, yeah, that guy is kinda mean. We don't really know much about him yet, but he is radiating strong main antagonist energy. The Book of Shadows acts as instructions for a massive door that requires 6 keys to open. The scary ghost from 1 minute ago tore out all the pages, but conveniently left the one that displays the recipe for the first key untouched. Raven Ex Machina is not happy with the main character and orders them to look for the scraps of the next page that have been scattered everywhere, while also finding the ingredients necessary to craft the first key. The shadowy observatory did contain a combination that helped open the door to the living room in the regular dimension. If you look at the clock, you will see that it's time to catch up with R. His second journal entry reveals that Cagliostro was the founder of the mansion, and that R was trying to solve his mystery, leaving the protagonist to question their own involvement in this. Behind a drawer puzzle was the red crystal, which can be inserted in the statuette in the hall to grant access to the shadowy hall, revealing that there are multiple entry points into the shadowy dimension and not all parts are necessarily connected. The shadowy hall looks exactly like the place illustrated in the Book of Shadows. So, after fixing the altar and putting in the ingredients, the first key appears and the protagonist uses it to unlock the first lock. And here is where an important aspect of the keys is displayed. For each key used, a rundown room gets fixed. In this case it is the hall, granting our hero access to the upstairs. The Raven instructs them to open the rest of the locks so as to not end up like R. Speaking of R, the Raven also leaves behind another diary entry where he states that spending time in the shadowy dimension is gradually sapping away his strength. This is the point where the protagonist decides it is too dangerous and should leave the house as soon as possible. With the stairs fixed, the protagonist ascends to the hall gallery and picks up the last scrap of paper. Once put together, they show the instructions for the second key. Completely lacking any sort of interest in continuing this charade, they take to the bedroom and stumble upon some old records belonging to R, where it is shown that he may have been a revered scientist with a fascination for clocks, although this is never expanded upon. A secret hatch in the wall hides the next portal that the blue crystal can be used on, transporting our hero to the shadowy bedroom. We've gone far too long since the last R's diary entry, so it's time for number 4. This teaches us about an intriguing peculiarity in the mansion's design. The portals are sealed and only Cagliostro's bloodline has access to them. But for whatever reason the protagonist completely overlooks this and decides that maybe R does need help after all. Hopefully you remembered to bring the feather duster from the hall because it's necessary to remove the cobwebs from the bed. Once removed, something seems off. This is the spirit. He doesn't seem to pose any danger, and for a small fee of 8 missing cards, he promised the protagonist that he would look for an escape route, win-win. But before then, it's time for another potion minigame. It will come into play later. By this point, all ingredients have been gathered, so the next key is ready to be created, which repairs the bedroom. The last few cards have finally been found and the protagonist is prepared to present him to the spirit. He tries to look for a way out, but his ability to gamble goes nowhere. He claims that someone is taking his powers away and leaves with one final warning to get out as fast as possible. There's no time to be disappointed, however, because there is work to do. The page for the third key is obtained from the painting in the bedroom. And now the protagonist must get through the barricaded door in the hall gallery by using the acid brewed earlier and a crowbar. I wonder what dangerous room lurks behind this door. Surely it must be a nursery. Well, I guess they're kind of creepy. Breaking news. More our law. It seems as though he wasn't losing his strength after all, but gaining magical powers. This leads the protagonist to believe that the hooded ghost in the shadowy observatory was in fact, are, and that they were lured to the mansion as a death trap. Interesting theory. Moving on. There seems to be no other way to go but through the portal in the closet activated by the orange crystal. Into the shadowy nursery we go, and hey, look. It's the dude again. He is very angry that the protagonist has been making progress. So he decides to show off his abilities again by destroying everything. But our crafty hero manages to find all the dreamcatchers to get rid of the spirits guarding the closet, escaping back to the regular world and collecting the last remaining ingredients. The third key undoes all the damage done to the shadowy nursery, allowing passage to the door ahead. By now, the protagonist has completely given up on finding a way out, as there clearly is none. So, it's back to the grind and looking for scraps of the page for the fourth key. The way to the shadowy hall gallery has been unblocked, and Hooded Ghost Man is back and he curses the door at the end of the hall. Too bad for him, there is a magic wand 2 steps away. But these encounters have only been validating the protagonist's theory that this is R. Especially since he outright told them that he requires strength. Oh well, the shadowy kitchen is next and the key to the next room is already on full display. After getting it down, a familiar face appears. That's right. It's the spirit again, but he seems different. He was manipulated by him to come yoink the key and slow down the protagonist even more. But worry not. Because the key left behind a perfect mold that can be used to construct another key. The replica key works like a charm and the door to the shadowy bathroom is opened. The Raven makes its first appearance since 3 chapters ago and kindly suggests the brilliant idea of using a ritual to release the spirit. That way, the spirit can be free. He would no longer be forced to be a nuisance to the protagonist, and they could even get a favor from him. Win-win. The Raven was nice enough to leave behind a page detailing the ritual that must be performed. So our main character leaves the shadowy dimension by using the cyan crystal on the portal in the shadowy bathroom and finds the remaining scraps and ingredients. With the fourth key in possession, the bathroom is back to normal. Now that the bathroom mirror is back together, there seems to be something off about it. After cleaning it, the protagonist can simply walk through it to get to the study. However, it is only a one-way trip. The study in particular has many useful things, such as the summoning circle for the ritual, the key to the hall's 2nd floor, the page for the next key, and another diary entry from R. The whole magic powers thing doesn't seem to be working well for him. And he mentions the central crystal, which allegedly stabilizes the mansion. So, the game plan is as follows. Summon the spirit. Release him and in turn obtain information about the whereabouts of the central crystal and hopefully use it as a soft reset button. There are even more surprises to the study, as completing a puzzle on the desk open a secret passage into the observatory, which also appears broken down. This makes the protagonist wonder whether the 2 realms are connected somehow. Soon enough, all 5 ingredients are collected and it's time for another detour. The 5th key fixes the telescope in the observatory. Somehow, the telescope being fixed brings about all of the ritual materials scattered across the observatory and hall's 2nd floor, as well as a hammer used to smash vases, one of which containing the page for the last key. With all the materials ready, the protagonist begins the ritual and the spirit appears, even worse than the last time they crossed paths. With use of the anti-spell potion, the spirit is freed, and as thanks he tells our hero that the central crystal is located in the shadowy living room, but warns them not to go there for it is too dangerous. even though he leaves behind the purple crystal that grants access to that part of the house, so he's basically asking for us to go there. The purple crystal is used to travel to the shadowy hall's second floor. And after dispelling a magic web, the shadowy living room is in sight. However, the box on the table must be opened first. The box also contains R's last diary page, in which he details how he is about to kick the bucket. And to cheat death, he will transfer his life force into the crow, but not before writing the letter the protagonist receives at the beginning, meant to be read once they became old enough to come here. There is obviously a lot to unpack here, and the protagonist gets sent into a bit of a vengeful spiral. Regardless, at the bottom of the box lies the one, the only, central crystal, in all its glory. Uncharged glory, that is, because apparently charging a crystal is something you have to do. The Raven appears once more in the shadowy dining room and gets confronted by the protagonist. It obviously doesn't remember anything. It literally said "Sir" in the note, and leaves behind one last note. R somehow knew this plot twist would affect the protagonist, and insists that Cagliostro is the real mastermind. He states that a machine is needed to charge the central crystal, and once in place, it would completely destroy the occultist's creation. The protagonist brushes off the thought that Cagliostro might still be alive and kicking and decides to get to work on the machine, but not because R told him to. On their way to the altar to fabricate the last key, Ghostman came back and makes the most shocking revelation in hidden object game history. He was Cagliostro this whole time, and he is taking it upon himself to be annoying and trap the protagonist in a magic web every time they return to the shadowy hall. After the fact, they lament not having trusted the Raven, but still press on. They use the key and... oh, come on. Yeah, remember how I said there was 6 keys needed to open the gate? I lied. Or, the game lied. But on the bright side, the dining room the yellow crystal was used to access is fixed. Now the cabinet in the dining room is out of the way and the door to the kitchen is on full display, which is the perfect place to charge the crystal, as R stated it charges better over a fire. But before then, the machine parts and ingredients must be gathered. All of the necessary ingredients are in the greenhouse, and with some water, the wilted plants are good as new and ready to be harvested. There is also a code for the door that leads to the shadowy study. Everything seems to be going well, but Cagliostro appears twice, but he does dish out on some great magic that he is almost done with. Like its regular counterpart, the shadowy study is full of goodies. The instructions for the machine, the remaining component, and the big key that finally opens that nagging gate to the heart of the house. Before going there, the crystal must be charged. After a little minigame, it is finally done, and the protagonist can fulfill their destiny. Okay, this is just becoming redundant. This time, our friend finally reveals that the reason he is even doing this is to become immortal. Our hero gives the central crystal to the hand, and a thrilling boss battle with our villain ensues. Approximately 2 minutes later, Cagliostro reveals that this was just another trick to sap away the remaining strength the protagonist had. But before he can finish him off, Raven Ex Machina returns and destroys Cagliostro for good, along with the shadowy side of the manor altogether. With all paranormal activity eradicated, the mansion underwent a significant makeover. The protagonist's life force has returned, and they get the whole of Mortlake estate as inheritance. I guess they no longer need to worry about their finances. Roll credits. And that, dear viewer, was the story of the Mystery of Mortlake Mansion, beautifully recapped. Thank you for joining me and listening to me using an automated speech program to yap about a 13-year-old obscure ghost game. But hey, it got released on Steam a little over 2 years ago, so it's technically newish. There are still many unanswered questions like, what's the deal with the spirit? How did Cagliostro become an entity after his death? Where does this door lead to? But maybe I'm looking too far into it. Anyways, I'm out. Bye.